Chapter 12. I listened for slippered feet as I pressed my ear against Frankie's door. After a moment, the door cracked open.
"This better be good."
Frankie muttered, barely able to hold open his dark eyes. "It is. We've been trying to beat the fairy tale chapel. We can't beat them. It's impossible. Like you said, they have more employees and more chapels. They're better than us."
"Thank you for repeating what I already said,"
he said dryly.
"I'm heading back to bed."
I wedged my foot in front of the door as he was closing it. We could have them down for the count by tonight with no way for them to reopen for business until next week. Frankie slowly brightened.
"Which would be after the competition. We could win."
He beamed and hopped in place.
"Tell me the plan."
"Muffin?"
"Muffin?"
he asked with an arched brow. His smile fell and he attempted to close the door again. I shoved through. "Just hear me out."
"I don't see how Muffin can help. All she does is destroy."
He shuffled to the kitchen to pour a cup of coffee.
"Want some?"
"Yes, please." He handed me a mug and sipped from his. He sighed.
"Do you know I had to reorder my special coffee blend after the last time she was here? They were out of stock. I finally received my order this week."
He took a long sip.
"Daddy missed you."
"It's very nice," I agreed, though not nearly as infatuated. He eyed me.
"It's nicer than your outfit. What the hell are you wearing?"
"The remnants of another muffin rampage." He nodded in understanding.
"See? She destroys everything. How could she possibly help? Except to force couples down the aisle. And I'm even starting to feel guilty about that."
"This will be better, and you don't have to feel guilty either. Well, maybe a little. We'll aim her natural ability to annihilate at the fairy tale chapel." His face widened with a devious smile.
"She destroys and rampages wherever she is. And if she happens to be at Fairy Tale Chapel, destruction galore."
"Add her angry exes, and we have the power to bring the chapel to its knees."
"I love it. How do we get her over there without raising suspicion?"
"Well, she fancies herself as a do-it-yourself remodeler. Perhaps a few hints and she'll head over there. Once she's in, there's no way they'll get her out." We looked at each other and snickered. After Frankie and I had our plan laid out, I returned to my apartment. Hearing noises coming from upstairs, I was sure Muffin was up to no good. I found the door wide open, and Muffin standing in the kitchen with her mouth hanging open. I thought she was prowling for food until I saw what she was looking at. Caleb. He was shirtless and working the floor with a scraper. His back muscles rippled with each movement. It was mesmerizing. The work looked as if it came naturally to him, like he had done it all his life instead of sitting at a poker table or chasing skirts. "How can I help?" I asked, snapping my jaw back into place. He peered up and wiped a drop of sweat from his brow with his forearm. His really firm forearm. If he asked me about the wager right now, I'd say yes. Not even yes, but hell yes. A please let me lose, yes. Of course, I already planned on saying yes. "Oh, brother, I'm in trouble."
"Are you listening to me?"
he asked. "Huh?" I peeked up from where my eyes had roamed to his chest. He grinned.
"Kitten, I asked for the sander."
I browsed until I found what I thought was a sander. "This thing?"
"Yes, that thing."
He took the sander from my outstretched hand. "Do you know what you're doing?" I questioned.
"Afraid I might sand a hole all the way through to Frankie's apartment?"
"Anything is possible."
"I promise whatever I do will turn out better than it is now."
"I think it would be impossible to make the floor worse. How can I help?"
"You can scrape while I sand behind you."
He winked.
"You might want to change. I'm sure you'll ruin your clothes."
I eyed my garments. That would be a blessing. I took the scraper and knelt on my favorite hoodie.
"Wear these."
I took the offered gloves and slipped them on. "How do you know how to strip a floor?"
"Usher flooring and cabinetry."
he stated.
Marry me and you'll be the recipient of new floors and cabinets every time you sneeze.
You own it?
My dad, he commandeered all nights and weekends when I was in school.
That explains. I dropped off, contemplating his form.
Explains what?
He asked, amusement playing in his eyes. I waved at his physique. He was going to make me say it.
She's saying you're built like a stag.
Muffin called from the kitchen.
What you need is a woman built to complement your strength, make you work harder. Take me, for instance. I could have you on your back in 2 minutes. You'd like it too.
He's mine, I clipped, intending to ward her off from throwing him over her shoulder and stampeding down the aisle, but it sounded rather territorial. I'm just trying to save your sorry butt from Muffin, I whispered, attempting to wipe the smirk off his openly amused face. It remained. Get back to work.
I'm afraid you'll both ravish me while I'm innocently working.
He teased. You're safe, I said dryly.
I wouldn't be so sure,
Muffin said. It must have been a trick of the lights, but I was sure I saw her teeth glistening with hunger. Muffin, Frankie wants to see you, I said, turning her attention.
What about? I'm not working extra hours. My talent only comes in 3 to 4 hour bursts.
It's about your stellar remodeling skills.
Oh, in that case, I'll head down now.
She plodded past, nearly toppling Caleb and me into the sticky muck.
I wouldn't want him to start without me. He has horrible taste.
I couldn't argue with that. As I began scraping, a sticky layer ribboned and glommed. I flicked the scraper, trying to remove the goop. It stuck like gum on a shoe.
Scrape it off into the bucket.
Caleb instructed, pointing to a bucket on the other side of him.
I'd pass it to you, but it's stuck for now.
I stood and stepped over, straddling him as I reached toward the bucket.
Is all your underwear on the floor?
He asked with a groan. Yeah, why?
Hard not to notice when you're standing over me in a skirt.
I hopped back. How embarrassing. Sorry, I muttered.
You should be. The sight will haunt my dreams for weeks.
I'm sorry it was so traumatic, I bristled.
Bad choice of words. More like torment. You're already in my dreams. Now I have an extra vision to keep replaying.
You dream of me? I asked, trying not to beam. His eyes flicked over.
Yes, you're always there. Sometimes it's just your green eyes. Sometimes it's more.
He focused on a patch of floor, the sander working a little too hard on an already clean spot. I began scraping, letting the moment pass. It was safer than reenacting whatever dreams he had and becoming a permanent fixture on the floor. As we worked, I thought about our wager. Of course. But I also thought of Maya. She's been known not to pick up her phone, but with David and Ian missing, it grated against my intuition. I never put too much stock in womanly intuition, but it was there, nagging at me like a ticked-off junkyard dog. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I yanked off the gloves.
You don't think it's break time already, do you?
Caleb teased. I have a bad feeling about Maya. I'm calling Remy to see if he's found out anything. My brief call to Remy left me anxious. He wasn't any closer to solving the postcard riddle, nor was he able to contact any of the missing people or Grayson. No surprise there. I itched to storm Lost City again. Grayson obviously didn't fix the problem. Fiona was still pulling strings and shielding Grayson from the world. You're a son, I said, thinking out loud. Caleb blinked.
That's a pretty sound conclusion.
Who are you afraid of? I asked.
Jessica.
He stated. Jessica is his PR manager. I'd have to agree with his choice. She's like a viper in heels. No, who are you afraid of in your personal life?
You.
I gaped. I'm not scary. He chuckled.
All women are scary, but you stepped in the ring with one of the scariest and nearly had her.
You heard about that? I winced.
I watched it. Well, as much as I could. I think I had my eyes closed for most of it. They had a live feed in the high-stakes room.
I buried my head into my hands. How much was wagered?
I lost 1,000. At first, I was just being supportive, hoping you'd win. But in the second round, your eyes.
He paused.
Let's just say I feared for the woman's life. I thought you were going to win.
I'm sorry you lost 1,000. He shrugged.
I won it back after a few hands.
And that is why Caleb sits at the high-stakes table and I don't. I don't really scare you, do I?
No, I'm more afraid of myself when I'm around you. However, my mom could scare the pants off me when I was in trouble. She wielded the wooden spoon like she meant business.
Did she ever catch you? He smiled fondly.
No, I don't think she would have ever used the spoon, but she threatened like she was going to.
Did it stop you from getting into trouble? He grinned.
What kind of son would I be if I didn't keep her on her toes?
I smiled at the image of Caleb as a child. What a handful he'd be. And if he was a handful, I couldn't imagine the Miller brothers. What kind of mom raised them, I wondered. Perhaps a woman who could get the job done.
Does everyone know the plan?
Frankie asked, pacing the parking lot the next day.
We distract Charming and his freaky fairies. Muffin goes in and does her business.
Lenny said.
We're in, we're out. Bim, bam, boom.
There's a little more to it than bim bam boom.
Frankie said.
This is gonna be fun.
Muffin said.
I called in favors from my exes. The castle will be remodeled by nightfall. I've got some big plans.
That's great.
Frankie said, appeasing her for the sake of the crackpot charade. She still didn't know we were using her for her destructive powers.
Nadia, make sure to keep Charming occupied for as long as possible. Once the work starts, we don't want him back on site. Pull your bodice tighter.
He stepped over and reached for the strings. It's fine, I argued, slapping his hands. I'll need as much air as I can get. Last time, Charming had me running circles around the bus, and that was only for 5 minutes. I can't imagine what he'll do with more time, but I have Mace tucked in here somewhere, just in case.
That's probably wise. Lenny, you know your job. Caleb, thank you for helping. You know your job, right?
Caleb grinned.
The princesses.
Frankie gave him a once-over.
In that outfit, you'll have no problem. All girls like bad boys, especially princesses.
Frankie's gaze raked over him again.
And me too.
I wasn't sure about Frankie's logic, but Caleb was dressed in fantasy garb that could be very convincing if he acted the role. The pirate costume was from Frankie's chapel closet. Since Caleb is larger and more muscular, the costume fit snugly. Snug enough to give hot flashes to women passing by.
Turn around, let me see how that looks.
Frankie said. I shot Frankie a look as Caleb turned in a slow circle. Frankie fanned himself.
Dear Lord, they'll be swooning like tweens at a boy band concert.
Frankie said, clearing his throat. Ripping his eyes from Caleb's derriere with a whimper, he addressed Danny.
You know your job, right?
Yes. This is the worst half-baked plan I've ever heard. I'm running as soon as the cops come.
She said with a snap of her bubble gum, which was the same shade as her orange hair.
I have enough dings on my record without adding this nonsense.
Charming went too far. He has to be stopped.
Frankie said.
If Caleb is willing to tarnish his reputation, then you should be too.
Caleb leaned over to whisper in my ear.
I'm tarnishing my reputation.
It's already ruined, I whispered back. What's a little added tarnish?
I think these pants are cutting off circulation.
They do look tight, I said, trying not to stare. Once we head to the chapel, change into jeans.
And risk missing swooning princesses?
I rolled my eyes. I don't think I've ever seen a person swoon.
I could make you swoon, kitten.
He whispered, tracing his finger down the side of my neck.
Nadia!
I jumped at Lenny's bark. What?
Stop making googly eyes. We're heading out.